Top story brought to you as always by Piggly Wiggly over in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch items that are available until 6 p.m. Also, their hand cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And we got a couple of them actually. One trickled out over the weekend. One, came about here earlier today, scrolling through Twitter as we are wont to do. The Team USA women's basketball Olympic team for Paris later this summer has been announced. The 12-player roster for that event, and there is a certain WNBA rookie who is not included on that roster, and as you can well imagine, all hell has broken loose on social media as a result.
You're talking about Cameron Brink, right?
Exactly. That's exactly who I meant. Yeah, no, I'm talking about
Cardoso for the Sky.
I'm talking about Kate Martin's former college teammate.
Go Ace, man. Yeah, you said it best. All hell has broken loose with that news that was trickling out at first, and then once the dam broke, it was the floodgates were opened.
Yeah,
over the weekend.
And obviously, a case could be made for Caitlin Clark being named to this team. Now, don't let the fact that she didn't attend tryouts get in the way. Also, might Caitlin Clark be a little tired? I mean, every competitor wants to compete. I get that. Every competitor wants to compete at the highest possible level. I understand her being disappointed not being named to the Olympic team. But on top of everything else, might this not be the best thing for her?
You know, it would have been real interesting. Presumably, if she were to have made the team, she would have accepted the invitation. But yeah, I mean, that is, we've talked a couple weeks ago and months ago about how kind of cool as a fan, as a spectator, it is that the college basketball season, and especially as much attention as this particular season has gotten, kind of just bleeds right into WNBA time. And so in that sense, as a fan and as a spectator, it's been phenomenal. But you're talking about a young lady that played a lot of minutes, went, all the way to the final game of the season, and then quickly turned around and is now trying to learn and figure out and navigate a whole new league that's a lot tougher, a lot more physical. So, yeah, that it certainly would have been fascinating. I presume she would have accepted a bid, but it would have been interesting to see if how much tread is on those tires, because, man, she has played a lot of minutes in the last couple months for sure.
Here's something that deserves to be considered as well. If she had made this roster, how much playing time was she going to get? Which begs the question, which is worse, her not being on the team or her being on the team and not playing?
That's an interesting thing to think about. And the crazy part about this, Mo, is that we're talking about Team USA women's basketball, who's won, what did I hear, 7 goals in a row? So,
yeah.
The standard is set pretty high. And so, she's in a unique spot because I think everybody realizes that she's got the chops and is a bona fide superstar. So it's not as if you see this sometimes with these NBA guys, like we've discussed, getting that bid, whether they play or not, kind of means a lot in terms of their reputation going forward in the league. She's kind of set. She's straight with that. So being on the end of the bench, I don't know. I can make a compelling case, I think, for either argument. But yeah, with as loaded as this team is, and with gold aspirations basically being the only aspirations, I don't know how much PT she would have got. I mean, that's a fair question.
She leads the WNBA according to this article on The Athletic with 67 turnovers, and the Indiana Fever now have as many wins, 3, as Clark has technical fouls.
Yeah, they're not good.
They're not great. She's putting up numbers, but the biggest numbers she's putting up are, the turnstiles and TV ratings. And here's an interesting paragraph from this article on The Athletic. Here's a challenge to reporters who would only have gone to cover Clark or fans who were planning to tune in only to watch her. Go write about two-time defending champion A'ja Wilson, watch Breanna Stewart's Sky over defenders, and take in the uniqueness and physicality of Alyssa Thomas's game. See Kahleah Copper, a finals MVP who proved again late on Friday night that she can captivate crowds with her late-game heroics. Watch Diana Taurasi, who will be playing for her 6th gold medal. There are plenty of other reasons to watch and stories to dive into. I mean, so for the people who have said proudly that their only reason to watch Team USA in women's basketball in the Olympics is Caitlin Clark, you're not working very hard. Because there's plenty of other reasons to watch if basketball is your thing. Now, if Caitlin Clark is your thing, then okay, she won't be there. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's and the folks that have that opinion but are open about that opinion, I'm cool with. If you're like, hey, I'm a Caitlin Clark fan, I really don't care much about the rest, I'm okay with that. But when you kind of disguise it a little bit, that's where I kind of fall off with the disingenuity a little bit from some of the folks. Because you're right, this team is loaded. There are great players. And if nothing else, it speaks to the level of competition that, hey, we're talking about a really great player, most likely your rookie of the year, that just quite couldn't crack the roster this year. Obviously, you're thinking, knocking on wood, hoping to have a long, safe, successful career. So there will be presumably other opportunities.
You would think. You would like to think. Yeah.
And so it's kind of, some tea leaves are being read, and we're kind of peeling back behind the weeds a little bit, kind of where people really sit or where they stand. But like if someone came out and said, hey, I'm just really only interested in watching her play, that's not really my level of fandom or, my what I'd like to hear. But I respect that part at least. But when you're kind of disguising it, oh, yeah, I'm a huge WNBA fan, and then you're all up in arms about Caitlin Clark, or the only topic kind of brought up is CC, then it's just a little disingenuous.
Just a little.
Speaking of pouring them out, I got to ask you, the board is pretty much set, but do you have an early favorite for the Rocco's Jello shot contest? LSU's kind of set a high bar in a couple rodeos. So do you got any money down on who might be the favorite for that contest this year?
You got to feel like it's a little wide open since LSU is not there.
Right.
There for the taking.
In the Mississippi schools. I mean, Ole Miss set the tone. And then Mississippi State carried that on. And then, as y'all know, because you've been to Starkville and you've been to Oxford and you've been to Baton Rouge, those 3 towns lead the league in drinking anyway. So it wasn't a surprise. Now we'll see. But I say this though, and I say this as y'all, anybody that sees me on camera, I got my Tennessee stuff out. I'm a Tennessee grad. Tennessee's been a little embarrassing in this thing. Like, they're in Omaha every year, and granted they've had earlier exits they wanted, but they have not represented on that marker board. So my challenge to all of y'all out there in Orange who are planning your trips to Omaha, I don't care if they're there to dogpile at the end or if they're, to a barbecue. Y'all need to at least represent. And I can't do but so much because I'm working. So we need the Tennessee people to at least put a number on the board. But I mean, early favorites, it's I always, it's going to have to be somebody that's there through the end. It's going to be somebody that we know has the ability to consume beverages. Florida's never really shown out in this thing. Even when they made it to the championship game last year, they finished like 5th or 6th, I think, in the Jello shot deal. So So it's wide open. I mean, it's, I've not called ESPN Bet yet, but I'm going to call them and see if maybe they want to put some odds on some stuff.
I guarantee you could get somebody to do it. Ryan McGee of ESPN joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Ryan, I got to ask you, you've talked about your UT motif, and we always like to kind of rate people's backgrounds when we get a chance to converse with them here. Who is 36?
All right, so that's a real jersey that came from Tennessee, and I'm told that it was worn on the sideline of like the Alabama game. It was Coach. The picture we always see of Johnny Majors being carried over to shake Bear Bryant's hand and all that. I'm told this jersey was worn like a reserve jersey, like dude never played. Yeah, but so there's a guy named Scott Reinhardt, and Scotty was the equipment manager. He was Bear Bryant's last student equipment manager at Alabama, and Scotty and I ended up working together at NASCAR of all places. And so when Scott was going through his boxes of stuff, he saw if I've got a home jersey and an away jersey. They used to do jersey exchanges. The equipment guys did. I tell you something about Scott. I always want to write this story. We're pretty sure Scott got Bear Bryant's last autograph, because Scott was the equipment guy. Bear Bryant was leaving the office, and Scott said, "Hey, Coach, could you sign this for me?" And got him to sign something like for a friend. And Bear Bryant had his heart attack like that night, and he didn't pass away for a couple of days. We're pretty sure Scott works for Notre Dame. So Bear Bryant's last autograph, I'm pretty sure, is in South Bend, which is crazy to me. And one day I'm going to convince an editor to let me write that story. But you talk about Coach Majors. So Tennessee fans give me flack about having this Pitt helmet. I have it because Coach Majors signed it for me.
Sure.
It's my little mini helmet there. And my other Tennessee helmet, I think, is the smoky gray, which people still get mad about. But but yeah, I got some Tennessee stuff
today. Friend of the show, Ryan McGee. Friend of Wade Neely, Ryan McGee. Did you ever finish that book, Wade?
Mo, I'm glad you asked. I got my copy here.
There you go.
Welcome to the Circus of Baseball. Ryan, the interesting thing, you autographed this book for me last year at SEC Media Days, and I was very thankful for that, but I found it very unusual. You wrote "Go Gators" for your autograph. That was just the most unusual part, as we got a photo there of you doing that. But yeah, you pinned in ink "Go Gators," which I just found kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I'm already
your background and everything.
Yeah,
today.
I'm already going to get my phone's already vibrating for what I just said about Tony V. And asking tough questions, so I know now that's only going to get worse. But
let the record show he did not do that, and it's a fantastic book. And
thanks for the help.
I'm sorry about that. Hey, but last summer, and really any summer, you kind of start getting that itch around or really before summer, like April, and you just kind of feel baseball season right around the corner. And when your book came out last year, it just scratched an itch that I didn't even really know that I had at the time. And I loved reading it, and a phenomenal job that kind of just puts you in the essence of small town America and minor league baseball, I thought.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I really do. And that book was a labor of love. And my honestly, and the dedication to the book is to the people who work in minor league baseball. I mean, listen, just down the road, at the Sounds. And I think about my biggest concern was doing right by them. I did that for one summer, right? One season. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure I did it right by my friends who have worked in minor league baseball for decades and the people who dedicated their lives to it. And the good news is, knock on wood, is that a lot of the people who have worked, the lifers, they've reached out and said they enjoyed it. And so that was the main thing, is I want to do right by them. But that's a love letter to minor league baseball. And I hope that with all the changes and everything that's happening, I'm hoping, and I feel like this is also something you can say to collegiate sports right now. Don't ever lose touch with like that feeling that you get from that book if you're minor league baseball, because that's what sets you apart from everyone else. And so I hope that maybe I don't know, maybe someone in Major League Baseball read that book and feel that way before they screw everything up.
And if you read it, you can feel sticky. You can feel the summer night kind of just pulsating through the book. So I kind of had to turn the air conditioning on when I was reading. Because you could just feel those summer nights just kind of setting in on you. Yeah,
Dan Levitard, I did a show a year ago when we were promoting the book, and he goes, "I read your book, man." He goes, "The Dairy Queen machine almost killed you. He said, the tarp almost killed you twice. He goes, you were making $100 a week. Was this actually fun? I'm like, dude, it's the most fun I ever had. You know, when you're 23, you don't know any better. Right. But it was, but yeah, it's, but I appreciate you saying that.
You went and grew up from there. Ryan McGee of ESPN joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ryan, we appreciate you taking some time with us. Enjoy Omaha. Hope to see you in Dallas here in a few weeks.
I will definitely be there. Definitely be there. Come by and see, because at that point I'll be like, man, I'm tired of hearing Marty's voice. So y'all come over there and help me give me somebody else.
We'll hit you up, brother.
I appreciate it, boys.
Man.
All right,
thank you.
All right.
I'm Maurice Patton, and that new face you see is Blaine Keller, sports editor of the Sumner News, among other Main Street media properties, sitting in for Wade Neely, who is on assignment down in Pulaski today. But we are coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes here on this Top 5 Tuesday. And glad to have you with us for the next couple of hours, talking sports of local, regional, and national importance. Some more so than others. But yeah, we're going to enjoy it.
Preps to pros today.
We are indeed going preps to pros today. Good. Look at you.
I follow the show.
Look at you dropping catchphrases. Yes, we will be going from preps to pros, and we'll probably be doing it all in the same segment. So looking forward to that. Blaine, what's up?
You know, the summer in the life of a high school sports reporter, some days you're working 3 or 4 hours and you feel like, you know, you're knocking everything out. Other weeks like this one right now, you're asked to help out on a daily sports show and you're blocking out a couple more hours. Feels like I'm working full days right now, which we just
want to make sure
the recovery.
We just want to make sure you're working, man. So yeah. No, seriously, I really appreciate you blocking out a couple of hours and coming in with us today, because again, Wade was unavailable. He had a different assignment to take care of, multitasking down there in Pulaski for the Pulaski citizens. So it's nice to have other talent that we can call upon in times like this. So
you can thank me at the end of it. You know, don't thank me now and then I tank the rest of the show.
No, no tanking. We're going to be just fine here. In our second hour, as we typically do on Tuesdays, we'll be visiting with the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters. It's summer for him as well. So interesting to see what he's got going on over on campus right now. And in our next segment, we are going to visit with Associated Press women's basketball writer Doug Feinberg, because there's never a dull moment in women's basketball right now for any number of reasons. But going to catch up with Doug and get his thoughts on a few things. So looking forward to that. We'll also be talking Little Braves. They had an off day yesterday, a much needed off day, and they open up a 3-game series in Baltimore tonight. So we'll see if they can get things going on the right foot with Max on the bump. Also, we'll be talking a little Men's College World Series. The final berth was clinched last night down in Athens, Georgia. Hint, it was not the host team that clinched said berth. We'll be talking a little NHL Stanley Cup as well. It's NFL camps going on, and there's some news coming out of at least one of them for someone who's not there. The U.S. Open starts up Thursday over at Pinehurst. Tee times are out. We'll talk a little bit about who's going off when. And again, we've got Blaine Keller from Sumner County. We'll be talking a little Sumner County high school news. So looking forward to today's show. And again, going from preps to pros. So, Blaine, we've not talked since probably spring fling. I hope you have been able to relax a little bit, but what has been going on with you up in Gallatin? Anything of note other than what we're going to be talking about later in the show? Don't give anything.
No spoilers there, but with the summer starting, a lot of what happens around here is high school baseball comes to a halt, but the college summer wood bat league full count rhythm gets started. They have just wrapped up their second week, starting their third week in the Prospect League this Tuesday. Things have been a little rough for them, 4-8 through their first 12 games, but the back-to-back Ohio Valley League champions have had success despite slow starts before. There's plenty of local talent on that roster too. So keeping up to date with that, and there's been a lot of racing stuff happening this summer, both IndyCar with Joseph Newgarden winning another Indy 500, and then Josh Berry, Jackson McLaren, two guys in the NASCAR series, both in the Xfinity and the Cup series, both making appearances in the area in the next couple of months. So keeping tabs on that as well.
Okay. That wood bat league is fascinating to me because those guys hit with non-wood during their regular seasons and then come and hit with wood during the summer. What kind of challenges do you see them dealing with in making that transition?
Well, I talked with Josh Carman, the coach and general manager at the Full Count Rhythm, a lot last summer. And it seemed more like that kind of transition was more a detriment to the pitchers, facing off against guys who maybe are making a bit more contact instead of power, I guess. One thing I've noticed, at least this season, is that through that first week, Full Counts pitchers really walked a lot of guys. You bring in some college guys who maybe didn't get a ton of experience during the season. There's going to be some rust. They walked a ton of guys in their 3-3 stretch through the first week. And then it seemed like that second week, they said, let's eliminate the walks altogether, just pitch in the zone. And then you got scores like 7-6, like 21-7, like 10-5. So they were pitching in the zone, but they were getting hit off a lot. So I think right now, Full Counts had a lot of success hitting the ball. It's just the pitching maybe isn't up to speed as it should be a couple weeks into the year.
Okay. Now they play at Drakes Creek?
That's right.
Okay. Well, great. Want to see some wood bat action? Get out to Drakes Creek. They play when? They
play tomorrow, Thursday on the road, I think, Friday and Saturday. So tonight, tomorrow night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night are all at Drakes Creek Park. So plenty of opportunities to catch them out in Hendersonville.
There you go. And if you're used to high school baseball, that wood bat, that sound of the ball coming off the bat is much more appealing to a baseball fan. So go check that out. It is Top 5 Tuesday. In our final segment of the day, Blaine and I will be giving you in tribute to the College World Series coming up this weekend in Omaha. We'll be giving you our top 5 college baseball players. So stay tuned for that. Right. Brought to you as always by Piggly Wiggly over in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options. They are available until 6 o'clock. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you our top story. And we've got a couple of them today. One that we missed, Wade and I, yesterday, unfortunately, but I think it's still pretty topical. But the other one, haven't seen it officially, but a number of media outlets are saying former Louisiana State baseball coach Paul Mainieri will be the next guy in the dugout at South Carolina. The Gamecocks made a move, I guess, after the NCAA regionals. They got rid of Mark Kingston, who had replaced Chad Holbrook. And this is a South Carolina baseball program that expects to win and win a lot. They won, and I'll never forget it, they won the last College World Series at Rosenblatt Stadium out in Omaha, and they won the first College World Series in the new facility out there. And they have not been back to Omaha since. So that's not good, particularly when your athletic director is the former baseball coach, Ray Tanner, who commanded both those teams. So out goes Kingston, and apparently in comes Mainieri. Now, Mainieri resigned, retired, at LSU after the 2021 season. He's 66 years old. But this move seems to be universally applauded. It's going to be interesting, but just because college sports has changed so much since he stepped out at LSU, I feel like. Blaine,
as
any
a
thoughts?
Rangers fan, does this feel kind of like a Bruce Bochy move? As somebody who had a lot of success, did it at the highest level, stepped away, and then I can't speak for Maneri myself, but maybe there was some itch to get back into it after a couple of years away.
That's an interesting twist, and had not really thought about it like that. You know, maybe you step away for a little bit, maybe you do get the itch, maybe you recharge a little bit, and I mean, the game hadn't changed a whole lot between the lines. Obviously, you've got the portal, you've got NIL, that kind of thing, and you know, you see so many folks wanting to get out of college athletics with those two factors, it feels like. So to see somebody wanting to dive back into it with all of that is, you know, a little bit refreshing, but it's I don't know. I mean, you kind of feel like to some degree it's a little bit of a young man's game, and Maneri's not that. But again, I don't think you can discount his knowledge. I don't think you can discount his knowledge, particularly of the Southeastern Conference. And, you know, if he and Tanner get going in the same direction, and maybe that was the case that, you know, with first Holbrook and then Kingston, maybe they weren't. You know, South Carolina, again, is a program that expects to be successful. Paul Maneri is a guy who expects to be successful, obviously. Again, won a national championship at LSU in 2009, took them to the finals in 2017. This is a guy who's had success everywhere he's been, at Notre Dame before that. So I don't guess you can argue with the hire, but I do think it kind of comes a little out of left field for some folks. I didn't really have a feel for what direction they were going to go in, but I wasn't expecting Paul Maneri.
As someone who kind of has to, maybe not has to, but following that situation a little bit after Mark Kingston was, I guess they announced it as parting ways. There was some vying for associate head coach Monty Lee to take that position. Monty Lee is staying on the staff, according to rumors. And one important local tie in all of this is Monty Lee is the main communicator to Liberty Creek senior pitcher and South Carolina signee Gavin King.
Oh, there's always a local connection. Is something that we have found on Main Street Sports today. So yeah, that's going to be good. Now tell me about Gavin King. Is he a graduate now, and has he signed?
Just graduated, signed in, I believe the winter was somewhere around December. We covered that. He's had an interesting road. Started at Pope Prep at about my size. He was not a very big guy, but yeah, he's really built up his velocity. And as you know, he's grown in stature. He's grown in being a very highly touted player, highly touted pitcher. You know, around his sophomore year, he transferred out of Pope Prep, went to Liberty Creek, struggled a bit there because it was a first-year program at that point. So one of the most notable stories from his first season was where he pitched, I think, 5 or 6 no-hit innings, and Liberty Creek no-hits Portland, but loses, I think, 9-3 or 9-6 in the spring. So took his lumps as a junior, was really primed with a new arsenal as a senior, and probably could have led Liberty Creek to a successful run in the 2A postseason had he not suffered a torn ligament in his elbow in the preseason against White House, and had to undergo Tommy John surgery before the season got underway. So
there's a lot of question marks then, especially with a new coach coming in and him dealing with injury and that kind of thing. That I would say perhaps your summer just got a little busier, Blaine.
Well, you know, I talked to Gavin during the spring, a little after he had his surgery and he had started working out for the first time, said he felt good. And in conversations with his family after Kingston was let go, this was before Mainieri was hired, but it seemed to be that Gavin was still going, that South Carolina was still going to honor his signing to the school.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good to know. That's good because, I mean, that would be a tough situation this late in the recruiting process for an incoming freshman, basically, to not know what's going on with them. To follow up on this, I've just received a text. We will be joined tomorrow by Scott Rabelais of the Baton Rouge Advocate to talk a little bit more about the return of Paul Mainieri to the coaching ranks. So be sure and check us out tomorrow as well. But our second top story before we go to a break, Vanderbilt has a national track and field champion, and as longtime Brentwood High School and current Nashville Christian track coach Ronnie Siegenthaler like to remind me, it is track and field, and in this case it's field specifically. Veronica Fraley won the NCAA discus championship out at Eugene over this weekend with a throw of 63.66 meters. I'm going to let that marinate for you for just a second. That equals 208 feet and 10 1/4 inches. So,
wow.
Because, yeah, exactly.
You think you can throw anything that far?
Nothing.
No?
Nothing. There are some people I'd like to throw that far, but no, there is nothing I can throw 200 feet. Nothing at all. I meant to look this up earlier, and I'm going to hopefully do it fairly quickly here. Stay with me just a second. It's going to be worth it when I get here.
Can we get an anchor down while we wait, Mo?
You can go ahead and throw one out there real quick. The boys class AAA championship discus throw at Spring Fling, which we referenced just a bit ago. Come on. My computer is not cooperating. Here we go. Boys class AAA discus. Was won with a 56.18 meter throw, a 184 feet 4-inch throw by Coffee County's Xavier Randolph. So, Miss Fraley outdistanced the Class AAA champion in Tennessee by 24 feet.
According to the Vanderbilt Hustler here, she is one of 3 individual championship winners all time. Gordon Sargent won the men's golf individual title in 2022, and Ryan Tolbert in track and field in 1997.
Yes.
So,
yeah, Ryan was their first individual champion. So Veronica Fraley becomes Vanderbilt's second NCAA track and field athlete to win a national title, and their third individual period, as you said. So yeah, that's big doings for Miss Fraley. Congratulations to her, absolutely. And she gets a grad student, so I assume that this is how she will be going out. We are going to talk a little women's basketball here in this segment, and you know, if you've been keeping up over the past any period of time, basically, there's a name that's really moving the needle in women's basketball right now. And Saturday, the roster started to trickle out. Wasn't announced until later Saturday, but the roster for Team USA in the Olympics was starting to come out, and Caitlin Clark was not on said roster. And again, as Wade and I mentioned yesterday, all hell started to break loose, as does everything involving Caitlin Clark. But I saw this tweet from our next guest Saturday evening, and it really reached out to me. If you can't see our show, it's funny. I believe I'm the only U.S. journalist who has covered every women's basketball game at Olympics since 2008 and World Cup since 2010. There are a lot of bad takes and bad narratives out there today. Hashtag show up before you speak out. With that said, I felt like this guy's got something to say, and I want him to say it for us. So we welcome back Doug Feinberg of the Associated Press here on Main Street Sports Today. Doug, get it off your chest.
I were talking track. I like the track introduction. Was it the New York State track meet this weekend when all hell broke loose Saturday morning? I woke up to a text saying, "What do you think of the U.S. Olympic team?" I'm like, I'm in Syracuse right now. I just rolled out of bed for a track meet up here. I don't know what you're talking about. Then I had to go back and do it. I'm like, didn't see that coming at 2 a.m. Saturday night or late Friday night. I should say.
Mm-hmm. What, as everybody started to lose their mind about this, Doug, again, you have covered every Olympics since 2008, each of which, by the way, have resulted in a U.S. gold medal. You have covered every World Cup since 2010. How big a deal is it that Caitlin Clark will not be representing Team USA in Paris this summer?
So I think you have to go back to what the U.S. selection committee's job is. It's to put together the best team they can to win a gold medal. And as easy as it sounds to do that, the world's getting better. I think that will have had, by the time they play their first game in Paris, maybe 13 hours of practice time as a team, as the 12 individuals together, which, again, you have the best players in the world. So they're really talented. They're really good. They can get away with it, so to speak. But that's not easy. So the criteria that they have to choose from for putting a team together includes how versatile a player is, leadership ability, experience helps for that. Marketability and popularity. This is not a popularity. It's not the queen of the prom you're voting for here. It's not the popularity contest. It's who's going to help this team win the best. And I think Caitlin's a great player. I think she's going to be on many, many Olympic teams down the road. But think about it. It's a 4-year process to put this team together. 3 years this time because the Olympics were a year delayed because of COVID. But it's a 3-year window they're putting together this team. And there's an offense, there's a defense, and you're asking a 22-year-old kid, if she was on this team, to learn a point guard, I should say, to learn an offense, to get the ball to the players where they can be the most successful to score on the offensive end and defensively guard players in the European style she's never seen before. So those are two huge boxes that Caitlin Clark doesn't check because she's had a chance to play. She's only 22 years old. So I think that's the first thing that was annoying me, that there was a marketability and popularity, the two important things that they should be thinking about. And that's the furthest thing from the mind of a committee trying to put together a gold medal winning team.
I think in all of this that there are two things that are being missed as well, Doug, and Wade and I kind of knocked this around a little bit yesterday. One, Caitlin Clark did not attend the tryouts for the Olympic team. Is that correct?
So they had camps over the 4 years or the 3 years, and they invited her to the one in February. She couldn't make it, obviously, because they're in the middle of the Iowa season. And then they said, hey, if you don't make the Final Four, Iowa's not in the Final Four, we'd love to have you come to Cleveland and play in the training camp we're having there, the last training camp we're doing before the Olympic team's named. And sure enough, the Final Four and the championship game, so she couldn't make it. And by the way, attending that camp was not if you're not there, you're not on the team. That's another misconception out there that earlier on. You didn't have to be there, but for her, it helped. They could have seen her play against other pros, and she would have learned some things. So it wasn't her fault she wasn't there.
Right.
She wasn't there. She did not attend any of the camps.
Okay. Second thing, how tired is Caitlin Clark? After going through the college season that she went through and then rolling almost straight into the WNBA. I mean, isn't she likely experiencing a level of fatigue that this might be a blessing for her not going to the Olympics?
So I'll say I'm tired from covering from the Selection Sunday show through the NCAA tournament. You usually have a little bit of a time between that and the WNBA. That wasn't the case this year. It just kept on going, and stories, which is, by the way, it's great that people are talking about WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. But I said I was tired. I didn't have to travel to games, play games against the best players in the world. The schedule they had was unbelievable. I mean, it was unfortunate. The 11 games in the first 20 days of the season, and they played really good teams, and they were exhausted. I saw them play the last one of that stretch in New York. I think it was a Sunday ago, or I guess maybe 10 days ago now. They were exhausted. I mean, they'd have come off a back-to-back. And that's Caitlin now coming off an unbelievable college season where she had all the pressure on her, breaking the Division I scoring record and getting her team to the championship game. So I can only imagine how tired she is, as all rookies are coming to the league. And it's not the worst thing to have a month off in late July, early August to recharge your batteries and get ready to play, and hopefully being playing for something in the last month of the season to try to get a team into the playoffs. So it's not the worst thing in the world to have that month for her to recover, recharge, recoup, and be ready for that stretch run.
Doug, you said that it's not about popularity and brand recognition because you're trying to win a gold medal. So for those that maybe haven't been following the U.S. women's team that's taken gold so many times, what all goes into forming a team that doesn't get a whole lot of preparation beforehand?
So that's a great question. And listen, it's probably the unpopular opinion to say that popularity doesn't matter. And everyone's hot take has been, they should really put her on to help grow the game and grow the interest. And I will get to your question in 1 second, but in a roundabout way, what is funny to me, and I've covered, I said the Olympics since 2008. To me, the Olympics are more about the non-basketball sports, the ones, the track, the gymnastics, the swimming, that only get that sort of 1 week every 4 years to showcase the best of the best. Whereas you could go to a basketball game any day in the winter for the men or in the summer for the women and see really good players play each other on the court, and it's pretty good talent there. So that popularity, that's why I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. To answer the question, they put the team together. There's a pool that the U.S. starts with, and once the Olympics are over, they put together probably 25, 30 people they think could be on the team, and then they narrow it down over time. It really, I talked to Jen Rosati, who's the selection committee chair, the other day, and it's a 3-year process. They look at every camp. At camp's done, they talk amongst the committee themselves. They have Cheryl Reeve, the coach, come on for the call and get her thoughts on who was playing well, who wasn't, things she wants to see. Another misconception, the coach has no input at all as far as deciding who's on the team. She can say what she's looking for, but she doesn't choose players. But they try to basically put together a jigsaw puzzle of who can fit well, who's played well, what can give the coach of the team, the system they like to run, the best chance to win. And that's what they've done so well since 1996 when they've won the first of the 7 straight gold medals.
Would it be a shock if anybody other than Caitlin Clark is Rookie of the Year?
That's a great question. Shock? Surprise, I'd say. I wouldn't say shock because of the numbers that they're putting up. Angel Reese has got almost a double-double a game, which is phenomenal. Cam Brink is number 2 in blocks on the defensive end. She might win Defensive Player of the Year if Asia Wilson doesn't. Listen, Caitlin's the favorite coming in. Name recognition helps. Caitlin's had a good year so far stat-wise. Everyone thought she'd drop in 30 a game, which wasn't realistic. But she's averaging, I think, 16 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds a game. Those are really good numbers. Mm-hmm. They're not what you're used to seeing out of her from college, but she's done nothing wrong to sort of not win Rookie of the Year. I think the other players have surprised a little bit how well they've played early in the season.
Is that the biggest issue around Caitlin, Doug, that everybody expected this to be Iowa 2.0 for her?
Yeah, that's a good point. People asked me before the season, what do you think she's going to do this year? I said, listen, if she averages 20 points, that's a really good season. I thought there'd be adjustment time. It's the ball's in her hands a lot, obviously. She gets the shots she wants. I I think there was unreal expectations of what people, and I'm talking the new fans of WNBA, not the ones that have been around for a while, thought she was going to do and could do. I think she's probably a little bit under points right now. I think that will go up as the season goes on. But yeah, I mean, listen, she's selling out arenas. They have the highest attendance in 26 years. The TV numbers have been through the roof. It's record ratings everywhere she plays. And also games she's not involved in are great ratings for the WNBA, which I think is important to note that people aren't just watching her, they're watching the whole league.
How much of a hockey fan are you, Blaine?
You know, right now we've touched on the Rangers. We've made the TCU connection to Islam Mustafa, another big fan I am of TCU and the Rangers. We can make a connection from the Stanley Cup final to both the Dallas Stars, who didn't make it to the Stanley Cup final, and the Dallas Mavericks, who were also trailing 2-0 in the NBA finals. So now we've touched on all four of my area sports teams.
Are you from Dallas?
Yeah, I don't sound like it, but I am.
I didn't realize that. So how did you? Never mind. We won't get off on that tangent at this point. But that explains a lot. Okay, so so you are just fine with the Oilers trailing 2-0 then, huh?
I don't have an issue with it now.
Florida took a 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Final Series with last night's 4-1 victory at home over the Edmonton Oilers. And again, as Wade and I talked about this series yesterday, there had been some conjecture on various social media platforms that maybe Florida wasn't all that impressive in their 3-0 victory to open the Stanley Cup final. Well, again, they won 4-1 last night, so they have outscored Edmonton 7-1 in 2 games on home ice thus far. And again, I don't know where the level of impressiveness comes in on this, but they're up 2-0.
That's all you need to know.
It really is. I mean, as we said yesterday, there aren't any style points to be scored at this point. It's survive and advance, and they are halfway to doing both on the biggest stage in the sport. So certainly be worth it to see where it goes from here. I guess the next game is Thursday in Edmonton. It's a 7:00 puck drop, looks like, on ABC. So as the Panthers look to further bury Blaine's hated Oilers all of a sudden. So, yeah.
The only DFW team I don't root for major sports wise, the Dallas Cowboys. Everything else I'm at least mildly a fan of.
Who is your NFL team, if not the Cowboys?
As someone who has to be a secondary contact to the great Terry McCormick, I don't have a team. I follow the league. I upheld my journalistic duties in covering the league on Titans home games, and I'm not a Titans fan. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. All right. Well, we have kind of gone past probably the point of our final break before we get to Top 5 Tuesday. So we didn't get as deep into the grab bag as we would have liked, but that leaves plenty for tomorrow. At any rate, Top 5 Tuesday brought to you by Mid-South 5 Fitness. 2 great locations, one in Franklin, one in Columbia. Whatever shape it is you're in, Thalas Steel will get you in a better one. You can see his work at steelathletes.com, the website. So again, Mid-South 5 Fitness bringing you Top 5 Tuesday, and this week's Top 5 Tuesday is our top college baseball players. Blaine, the floor is yours.
You know, I don't want to say this too prematurely, but with my first overall pick, I think right now I can say Paul Skeens is a pretty good answer, pretty good choice here. Just to take right off the board and kind of craft my style of play for my team, I'm going Paul Skeens 1-1.
I like it. Certainly he was a terror in the collegiate ranks, particularly last year at LSU after transferring from Air Force. My number one, and I will warn you by saying I like two-way guys. I got the chance to see Tim Hudson in, I guess it was the 1997 SEC baseball tournament down in Columbus, Georgia, where he was the player and the pitcher of the year in the Southeastern Conference, I do believe. I think he was like 15-1 and hit 370 something playing center field for Auburn. Tim Hudson is my number one.
Guys that go both ways. I'll warn you that I like a speedy style of ball on the offensive side, have good pitching to back it up. So 1-2, give me George Springer. 76 stolen bases in his college career. Or at least I think his senior season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go Springer, lead off.
Northeastern players played his college ball at UConn. Wasn't expecting that. Good pull. My number two, I'm gonna stay on the two-way thing. Will become the second Southeastern Conference player ever inducted into the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame this summer. Todd Helton of Tennessee. I remember covering that 95 World Series team when he would start at first base and they would go out and have a mound conference and they'd take an extra ball to let him throw and start warming up before he came in to close. But Todd Helton, as good as he was as a professional player, obviously he was even better in the college ranks. So
we're going to continue with guys that have some speed. We're going to bolster the outfield and pick number 3 with Oregon State's Jacoby Ellsbury. Good tie-in to a story I did a couple months ago. Shameless plug here on Boston Red Sox scout John Boer, who was responsible for signing and drafting Jacoby from the Red Sox years and years and years ago. Gallatin resident who had a long standing career with the Red Sox and the Rangers and I think the Marlins as well. So be sure to check that out. Let's go Jacoby Ellsbury, number 3.
There we go. Shameless plug there. Nothing wrong with that, though. You can find that at where? Gallatin News?
Gallatin News, that's right.
Okay. All right. My number 3 pick, former Blackman forward, David Price.
Nice.
That was a fun time around here locally to cover Vanderbilt baseball, and David was as good as it got. Golden Spikes winner, among other things, during his career at Vanderbilt. Yeah, that's my number 3. And a pretty good number 3 pick, if I say so myself.
I was thinking of David was on my board here. David was on my draft board, so you stole him from me there. I'll stick Vanderbilt, though, and draft someone my Rangers drafted a few years back. Hasn't proved it in the bigs yet, but give me Kamal Rocker.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you did that because I was getting scared of where you were going to go from the Vanderbilt program. I would be remiss if I did not take former SEC Freshman of the Year, former SEC Player of the Year, and Centennial High School graduate Tony Kemp.
It's a speed guy I should have grabbed.
And when you kind of outlined your likes, I was really getting a little antsy there. So
speed, I like speed. I need
a little speed, a little utility. Yeah,
he can do it all. Some great defensive plays that Tony Kemp has made against my Rangers. Unfortunately, he is really man lays it out.
Yeah.
As Sumner County sports editor, I cannot. I'm gonna fill out my 3-man rotation here. We just talked about him a second ago. Future top 10 pick, maybe top 5 pick in this summer's draft. We're gonna go Chase Burns, number 5.
That's not a bad pick, especially given your Sumner County ties. Yeah, Chase is gonna make a lot of money. If he's not in the top 10, he won't be far from it. So definitely keep an eye on him. My 5th and final pick is going to be possibly the best player to come out of the HBCU, historically black colleges and universities baseball ranks. Former Southern University standout Ricky Weeks, who went on to play with the Brewers, among others. But as a college guy, he was a terror and lived up to it for a while in the majors as well. So, by former Hillsborough High School three-sport standout, Aaliyah Logaleo. Aaliyah is playing professional softball, or will be playing professional softball this summer with the Chattanooga Steam of the Association of Fast Pitch Professionals, and they open their season next week at, it's not Warner Park. Is it Field of Dreams? Is that where you guys will be playing, Aaliyah?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. They said schedule. I'm just ready to go.
You're just ready to play wherever it is.
Wherever it is, I'm ready.
It's the home stadium of UTC's softball program as well, but they will be playing in the Coca-Cola Scenic Cup, Scenic City Pro Cup. There we go. All four of the AFP teams will be in action, including the Florida Vibe, the New York Rise, and there's one other team that escapes me immediately, and I can't pull my stuff up. But this has got to be exciting for you, Aaliyah, I would think. First, thanks for joining us. And I would think it's got to be exciting just to have the opportunity to continue your career in a professional manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. And it is super exciting. Growing up, you didn't see a lot of pro softball, but now that I'm out of college and to see pro softball growing and to be able to be a part of that growth, it's so much fun. And I'm really excited to get going.
And it's interesting that you mentioned growth, because you've kind of been growing things since you left Hillsborough. Again, standout player over there, as well as volleyball and basketball. When you came out of high school, you kind of rolled the dice on a new college softball program going over to Clemson. Were you on their first team?
Yes, I was. We started in 2020 and it was cut short, unfortunately. But yes, that was team one.
So you're kind of used to getting things started then, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun experience, to say the least.
Tell me, go ahead, Wade. I'm sorry.
I was just getting ready to ask, walk us through that process. What was it like being a part of a team at a place that has got a lot of tradition with other sports, but you're literally creating things from scratch? Kind of just maybe, how did that process go as far as building chemistry, working with your coaches? Kind of maybe shed a little more light on that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. That first year, it was crazy. We came in and didn't have any facilities. We were sharing the track and field locker room. We had a turf field that we would practice on every day. So it was really cool to see just the program start from kind of nothing, just, a couple girls with their helmets and bats, just having fun, and then growing into the successful program that we became. And that was truly, it came down to the people that the coaches recruited. They brought in girls that they believed could create success and could create a foundation of just positive energy and a good culture to, we wanted success maybe in 10 years, but we got it really in that second year, winning the ACC regular season. So I give a lot of credit to our coaches and just the athletic department at Clemson for bringing us in and trusting us. But the way that Clemson kind of poured into the softball program, that helped as well. So we had a fan day and we thought, maybe 100 people will come out. Nope. We were signing autographs for maybe 3 hours straight. Wow. And it was just so much fun. People coming to us saying, oh, I've never watched softball, but I know our baseball team's good, so we'll give you all a go. And we're like, yeah, come on out. Let us show you all about the sport. So it was so much fun.
And like you said, you guys delivered on the field, and you delivered on the field, earning all ACC honors each of your 4 years. First team this past year, your final year, but all ACC, all freshman ACC as a freshman, all ACC tournament team that second year, and again earning all ACC honors each of your 4 years. So I mean, you were right there on the forefront of what Clemson has been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. As you transition into this situation in Chattanooga, what do you take out of that into this?
I'm definitely taking a lot from that first year of just like learning to play with new people. Some of the girls who are playing with Steam, I've played with growing up. So it's really cool to kind of reunite with them, but really just learning how to get along with each other. You got to learn how to play with each other in order to have success. So definitely looking forward to just getting to know my teammates and seeing what they're all about and what they like about softball, what they like about being in Chattanooga whenever we get there. But just that's really my first approach is just being able to build relationship with all my teammates so that we can have, a really good season.
Having grown up in this area, Chattanooga probably isn't foreign to you, particularly from a softball standpoint, as much of a hotbed of youth softball or pre-collegiate softball, as they like to refer to it, as Chattanooga has been traditionally. What's it like for you being back in that town?
I'm really excited. Chattanooga is not far from home, and I've been 6+ hours away for the past 5 years, so I'm actually really excited to come back and be able to just go home and see my family a lot more often. But I grew up all the time in Chattanooga, whether it was me playing or my older sisters playing in Chattanooga. We were there all the time, at least one weekend a month. So spent a lot of time there. And then my middle sister actually went to college in Chattanooga for a year. And so I went up there to visit her all the time. So it's kind of like a second home. So I'm excited to be back.
I find it interesting that you're back in Chattanooga, but I am curious. Maybe walk us through this process. Did this just kind of pop up on your radar? Were there other places across the country maybe you were looking to pursue? And maybe how did you end up with the Steam?
Absolutely. So the past 3 summers, I've been coaching travel ball with Fury Platinum, who is actually who I played with growing up as well.
Mhm.
And they're based out of Chattanooga. So I've had a relationship with this organization since I was, I think 12 years old is when we joined. So I've gotten to know them and kind of work with them a little bit. So that was kind of my in with Chattanooga Steam. I know the owners really well. And so my success at Clemson helps a lot, don't get me wrong, but also just being able to build that relationship with them. There are a lot of upcoming teams, new and upcoming pro teams, and you see AU sports has really taken off as well. So there are a lot of other organizations that I really could have looked at, but I didn't really look past Chattanooga Steam just because of, all the history and love that's there.
How long have you known that this was going to be something you were going to pursue, when you got done at Clemson?
Honestly, not long. I wasn't really looking to play pro just because there weren't a lot of opportunities. So I didn't really think that was where I wanted to go after college. But this past December, I took a trip to American Samoa with some other collegiate athletes, all Polynesian. And so we just talked about, are we going to try and make an Olympic team? That's kind of where the conversation ended. I don't really have any information on that, but just that in the back of my mind saying, okay, if we want to try and do this, I'm going to have to stay in shape. I'm going to have to keep playing softball because these girls are no joke. There's so many talented Polynesian softball players out there. And so for me to even have a chance, I got to go play pro. And so that's kind of how this all started, was really back in December, just talking it up with some family members and people of my culture.
Aaliyah Logaleo, former Hillsborough 3 Sports standout, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Aaliyah is entering her first season with the Chattanooga Steam of the Association of Fast Pitch Professionals, and there will be a 4-team event, the Coca-Cola Scenic City Pro Cup, at Frost Stadium in Chattanooga starting next Wednesday, a week from today. And actually, the first game is at 11 o'clock. I'm sure that's Eastern time at Frost Stadium, and they will be observing Juneteenth. There will be a night game on Friday at 7:30 against the OKC Spark. The theme for that night is Taylor Swift night. So I guess everybody will be everybody's walk-up music will be Swiftie music. Is that the way that's going to work?
I would assume so. I really have no idea, but that's what I would assume it's going to be.
You're going to pick something out? You got something picked out?
Oh, I guess I got to think on that. I don't know. I'm not opposed to Taylor Swift, but I'm not on the other end Swiftie spectrum.
You're not a Swiftie. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm going to figure that out.
Okay. All right. the OKC Spark, the Florida Vibe, and the NY Rise. And I guess you guys will be playing at all four of those locations at some point over the course of the season. There's a collegiate league series the week after the Scenic City Cup in Chattanooga, going out to Oklahoma the first week in July, down to Florida the second week, and up to Long Island, New York the third weekend before the Champion Cup back in Chattanooga. And this is really kind of a professional schedule, huh?
Absolutely. A lot of games and not a lot of time, but that's what we do in college, so I'm ready for it.
Okay. All right. What are you most excited about as far as this goes?
Honestly, I have a lot of family members that play for OKC Spark, and I've never played against them at all, not in college and not growing up either. They all grew up in California. So I think it's going to be really cool playing against them and just being with family members and being able to connect with them and just show everyone that we're here to play pro softball and that we're really making our mark here.
Aaliyah Logoleo, professional softball player. How's that sound?
It's crazy. It really doesn't feel real yet. I think when I put my uniform on for the first time, I'm going to be like, okay, wow, I'm actually a professional athlete.
Lee, I wanted to ask real quickly about your family. I find it interesting that we talked about you starting the team at Clemson, but is it correct? Your mom started the program or was a member of the first team at Austin Peay.
Yes.
And then your sister becomes one of the first beach volleyball recruits at UAB.
Yes.
It's kind of in your blood, it sounds like, right?
I think so. That was definitely a big thing going into Clemson, was talking to my sister and my mom just about their experiences.
Again,
nice to have somebody to ping that off of, I guess.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, again, a three-sport standout. You played volleyball, you played basketball. I mean, was beach volleyball ever something that you considered?
Absolutely not. I watched my sister play, and then she asked me to play in a few tournaments with her, and it was not for me. I loved it. I love volleyball, but it was totally different from softball. Softball's minimal movement, short bursts of energy. Volleyball in the sand, oh my goodness, it is so hard. So it was not for me.
Understand. Thinking you made the right move.
In
athletics at this point.
Yeah, hey, and it's funny you mentioned that because I don't know if you saw, or if most of our viewers saw, but ESPN, there is a caveat to this, but ESPN reporter Buster Olney actually had reported yesterday that the plans were on hold and Baltimore was going to be relocating. Turns out that wasn't the only tweet that got sent out that seemed a little suspicious as Buster got hacked. 1.3 million followers worth of hacked yesterday. And so if you thought maybe that news was a little too good to be true, turns out it was.
Man.
Baltimore is staying put, and it looks like that for now, unless some real news comes out, it looks like the Vegas A's will be still a thing potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best way to put it.
Can you imagine? I guess I'm kind of glad that nobody knows who I am to hack me.
And I want to say, I think there were a couple ESPN accounts. Maybe it was just Buster Olney. I thought there was a second one that was hacked as well. But he definitely had one. There was a report. Obviously, these are all fake, but there was a report about Shohei Ohtani. I mean, there was whoever had a hold of that account. Not only did they get it, they kind of they knew what they were up to because they started dropping some heat right as soon as they got in there.
They had some fun with it, huh? Man.
Let's see. Buster Olney yesterday at 5:12 p.m. The season has been canceled due to COVID. This was 2 days ago. I apologize. This is a tweet about Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani has been banned for life from the MLB. I mean, yeah, this person, whoever it was that hacked him, really kind of went. And then you'll appreciate this tweet. It was sent out at 4:17 p.m. Maybe it was the final one before he logged out, I guess. It just simply said, "I hate the Mets." And that's all it said. So
that could have actually been Buster now. I mean, who knows?
I don't know if that was a walk-off or if Mike Buster, maybe
had just gotten it back.
Account. Yeah, who knows? But Some fake A's news yesterday. The new uniforms also potentially, and kind of getting back to that. If I was in Sacramento, I certainly would think it would be cool if it's even a short stint to have the jersey with the name on it. If you could somehow get that in the rotation.
Well, I mean, you'd think just from a merch standpoint, you would want that, right? I mean, because wouldn't a Sacramento A's jersey sell?
If I was remotely close to that area, I would snatch one up for sure.
No doubt.
I mean, you probably would get a little novelty purchases from across the country just because of how of a weird situation it is as well.
Exactly.
Scott, I'm curious as kind of digesting this hire, and it is a little bit of a head scratcher per se, but their athletic director Ray Tanner, he's just an old school baseball guy, right? I mean, how much of this can be maybe simply boiled down, if any of it boiled down to just two old baseball guys that have a little bit of a relationship? And maybe was that enough in your mind to potentially lure him up to South Carolina?
I think that had to be a big factor in it. Obviously, Ray Tanner won 2 College World Series at South Carolina back to back. In fact, they won the 2 right after LSU won in 2009 when Emory won. And Ray Tanner also, just some, there's got to be a lot of familiarity there and friendship. Ray Tanner was an assistant coach, by the way, for Skip Bertman at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. So again, just a lot of familiarity there. And I think that added to Paul's comfort with taking this job, that you're not only working for a guy who's been a coach, but has been a baseball coach, and he knows, some of, a lot of the issues you're dealing with. And I think it certainly led to Ray Tanner's comfort with wanting to hire Paul Mainieri. Look, I don't think either of them think this is a long-term hire, that he's going to be coaching there for 10 years or something like that. I would think 3 or 4 years. This is a South Carolina program that obviously has had great success, as I just mentioned, and has been among the powers in the SEC, and has been kind of not terrible in recent years, but certainly not great. And they're trying to get back to that level, and in an ever increasingly competitive SEC, when you're adding 2 teams in Texas and Oklahoma that expect to be good as well, and have been very good. Oklahoma won the Big 12 this past year and was hosted a regional. So it's you're trying to get back on a stronger footing and going forward in the SEC. And I think he sees Paul Mainieri probably as someone who can stabilize the program and win. Like he's won everywhere, and won under some. He won at Notre Dame, got them to a World Series, and cold weather climate. Not great facilities for sports like football, and basketball probably, but not great facilities for baseball. They used to practice on a parking lot, early in the season when he was at Notre Dame, and he made them. They averaged over 40 wins a year, Notre Dame, while he was there. He did tremendously well there before coming to LSU. So he's going to win. How much can he win? I don't know. But yeah, to your original point, I think Ray saw him as someone who can stabilize the program and bring them back to respectability. And Paul saw someone in him that, a kindred spirit, and someone who understands his needs and his desires in order to build that program back up to a level that South Carolina would like it to be at. And then I would imagine after a few seasons that he can hand it off to someone. Paul's got a big coaching tree, and I'm sure Ray Tanner does as well. And someone that they're comfortable with handing it off to try to continue the success they hope will be built again under Paul.
Scott Rabelais of the Baton Rouge Advocate joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Scott, when Mainieri comes back, he becomes the active leader in Division I career victories, 1,505. He's been a 2-time SEC Coach of the Year, 4-time National Coach of the Year. As you said, I mean, he's been ultra successful throughout his career. But when your AD is the former baseball coach and has won 2 national championships, you kind of know what the standard is. I wonder, for all of the comfort level that each of them has with the other, how much of this is or can become potentially Tanner looking over Mainieri's shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine there's going to be some of that. I can't imagine there won't be, and look, and again, Paul's has experienced some of this. He was he was hired by Skip Bertman. When Skip, he retired from baseball, and then he became the athletic director very shortly after that. And he hired there was a coach in between them, Smoke Laval, but he brought in Maneri, who had once played at LSU, and his dad was a great minor league junior college coach in South Florida, and so that's not totally unfamiliar. But yeah, there's going to be something. I don't think that Ray Tanner sits in the dugout like we saw. I mean, if anybody watched the Clemson Florida State Super Regional, and Jack Leggett, the retired Clemson coach, was in the dugout, and he got thrown out of the game over the weekend, and along with the current head coach. I don't think it'll probably be quite like that, but yeah, it's the standard is pretty high. I mean, if you've won multiple national championships in a sport, and you've had that, in a fairly recent success, we're not talking like say USC, which has won the most national championships, but only won one in the last, 35, 45 years. Then, you got to build that back up, but they know what it's like, and it's been recent, and that can be cumbersome. Sure. That can be an issue. I don't think it's not. And clearly the expectation is there. It's not to be doing what they've been doing, which is, getting in the NCAA tournament, having winning seasons, just, doing, making a field of 64, just doing okay, occasionally hosting a regional or something like that. No, the expectation is going to be that they contend for the SEC title and the SEC tournament title, which is something that Paul always put a lot of emphasis on, winning at LSU, and then hosting regionals and being a national seed and getting to Omaha. I mean, look, being one of those 8 teams, that's the holy grail. Jay Johnson, the current LSU coach, said, they won 137 games or something like that his first 3 years, but they didn't make it to Omaha. So, that's at LSU, that's not a good season. And I imagine at South Carolina, that's not a good season either. So, the bar will be high and the expectations will be high. And I can't imagine there's not going to be a little of, well, I did it this way and he's doing it that way. A coach like Paul Maneri is going to want to do it his way. And it'll be interesting to see that dynamic at play for what we learned about it. How they reconcile all that, because it's going to be an interesting thing indeed for them with two very successful coaches to coexist in that relatively close space.
Yeah, Jeff, I was curious. I feel like we've asked you this before, but at what point does the season kind of reach, hey, we're just kind of in the grind, or we're kind of in the I don't want to say doldrums, but we're kind of just in that no man's land type situation, especially for guys at the AAA level that are battling every single night to put forth their best effort. Have you kind of reached that point, or does that point kind of ebb and flow as the year goes along in your mind?
I think in general, it's usually in August. I know we all love to say the dog days of August, and sometimes that feels more prevalent than others. I think for a AAA team, the reason I say August is not so much the heat and all that usually comes at that point, not that it's not warm now, but usually the tough time for a AAA club is right after the trade deadline, because everybody on a AAA team is curious how a trade deadline could play out. Am I going to get moved? Am I going to get called up because somebody else got moved? Am I moving down? Am I moving up? What is the trickle-down effect of whatever my team and parent club do at the trade deadline? It's different every year. The Sounds have been directly affected by it each of the last few years with some guys getting moved. And so once the dust settles, and if you're a AAA guy that was optimistic to get some sort of an opportunity from a byproduct of the trade deadline and you don't, then you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not in the big leagues. I want to be in the big leagues, and we've got another 2 months of the season left. That's where mentally, I guarantee you, if you ask Rick Sweet that question, his mind is thinking about his clubhouse right after a trade deadline, because you get all parts of the melting pot at AAA, and that's where mentally you're like, all right, well, where's my light at the end of the tunnel to try to get to the big leagues? As much as they love Nashville, or they love being a Sound, or they love First Horizon Park, anybody at AAA wants to be in the big leagues, and that's usually where it comes. So I don't think it's that point right now. We're almost to the mathematical midway point. The first half will end after this coming homestand, and all-star breaks are coming. And I also think the regular Monday off day is a dramatic help in preventing guys feeling like they're in some kind of a grind, because of the fact that, the quote unquote old days, the old AAA days where you had one off day a month, really easy to feel like you're in dog days in May or June. So that component helps too, because literally from a rest standpoint, there's always another off day now coming around the corner. And I do think mentally and physically, I mean, I know it just from a broadcaster standpoint, I'm not out there playing every day. It helps in multiple ways. So that becomes a factor too in avoiding some kind of a grind of where you're at in the calendar outside of, I think, early to mid-August. That dust settling on the trade deadline is always a unique period at AAA.
That's a really interesting concept, Jeff, and I'd never really thought about it like that. But when you lay it out the way you did, it makes a whole lot of sense when it settles in. Okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like going to jail, I don't guess, but okay, I'm here. This is my life for now,
Well,
and
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. That was it. This is where I am, and
I've said this before. Obviously, Major League Baseball is the best level, the highest level. But I've always felt like I could make an argument that AAA baseball is the most interesting level because of all the different dynamics that are at play. Rick Sweet has told me many times, once he gets the word from Milwaukee that they say, hey, go tell, player A he's going to the big leagues, and Rick calls him or brings him in, whatever. Once player A has been told, hey, you're going up, the AAA manager's mind then has to go to players B, C, and D who did not go up and make sure they understand why or why not, or, make sure they're still good to go. And, hey, I know you're disappointed, but we got a ball game tonight. Keep doing what you're doing. Whatever that hard conversation is, the best AAA managers, and the Sounds and Brewers have one of the best of all time, in my opinion, and the win total reflects it. The best ones can keep players B, C, and D in that situation on that right path, because invariably, like I said, they may love Nashville, the ballpark, whatever. There's a lot of wonderful things about getting to play at the second highest level of baseball that there is. But when you find out you're not going to that highest level and somebody else is, how are you going to react? And we can all, I think, guess how we would react. But until you're in that situation as a player, we can only surmise that it would be a pretty big letdown and a pretty big gut check moment to try to go play your ball game that night when you just found out you're not going to the big leagues, when that carrot is dangled and you are so close to the big leagues.
You know how you'd like to think you'd react.
Yeah. You'd like to think, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go 4 for 5 and show them that I can do this. But that's why I also love baseball, because trying harder is sometimes the worst thing you can do in baseball. If you're a linebacker, you can literally try harder to go make the tackle on the running back. In baseball, if you try harder, you strike out on 3 pitches, because it's just not built that way for your response. That's where that's where this game challenges a guy, I think, in a different way than any other sport, perhaps.
Coach, you mentioned a couple of kids right off the top, Nick Harris and Caleb Johnson, and you mentioned they play both offense and defense. In Class 6A, how concerned are you with too many guys going both ways, or is there too many guys going both ways? What is the level of concern as a coaching staff in terms of, trying to rest guys on one side of the ball or the other, that kind of thing?
Yeah, look, we're deep in talent. And so we understand how to rest guys. We understand when to rest guys. I pull guys from workouts every day and say, hey, we get halfway through. I say, hey, you're done, just to keep legs under them. And as we progress through the season, you manage it. Great situation is, we got 3 scrimmages. Well, I can almost assure you Nick Harris is only going to play in one of those. It doesn't make sense for me to play him in 3 scrimmages. I know what Nick Harris can do. That's where I take my kids that are younger kids and develop them during that time. My goal is to take any freshman that is capable of playing varsity, give them all of those reps and all of those scrimmages. By the time we get to our region game, that kid is either going to be a great special teams player or it's going to be a great player for us on the offense or defense. And if they're not ready, then they just play JV. But that's how we keep our kids fresh. You know, I'm not going to have a team full of starters on kickoff. You know, our kids understand in a great business system, everybody plays a role. Everybody plays a role and knows their role. It's outlined for them, and they're expected to live up to that role. We talk about that, right? Hey, you may not be the starting wide receiver. Your role might be to be a great special teams player until you can learn or beat the guy out in front of you. That's your role. And so if you get kids to understand those things, you know, you start to see kids gravitating towards, hey, coach, I want to be on special teams. You know, I'm only going to dress 65 kids every Friday night. That's all the uniforms I have. So no matter where we go, we're only taking 65 kids in uniform. And so we have to understand that we got to have the right 65, and we got to have guys that's going to produce. We got to have guys that's going to be able to make plays when they're supposed to make plays. So that, you know, that guys playing both ways. Look, I got probably one offensive lineman that's going to start on defense. The other 4 won't even play defense probably. We have no depth problem anywhere on our football team. My defensive players, look, the one thing we have is speed. And I'll take that speed all day long because we got a little bit of size with that speed. And so I would say we probably have 3. We have 3 kids that could potentially play 80% of the game on both sides of the ball. The others, I mean, they're just offense or defense. And, you know, offensively, we do so many different things. You know, we can go a whole series and not use Nick at tight end if we have to. So we understand this as a staff. So those are the things we talk about. Those are the ways we're going to try to manage it throughout the season. You know, by importance of games, you know, we want to win all our games, but, you know, some games are just less important. And if I got a kid that's got a hip injury and, you know, he's like, coach, I can play, and it's a non-region game, you know, I mean, it's easy for me. He doesn't play, you know, because win, lose, or draw, we don't lose anything by losing that ball game. But if that kid's not available for me when we go to Ravenwood or Brentwood and we lose that ball game, now we could potentially not make the playoffs and possibly not win the region. So it's just how you manage it. It's not, I think we make too much of it sometimes, kids going both ways. And the other thing is, are you conditioning them to go both ways? You can call any one of my players right now, and I'll tell you, I'll bet anything. They can tell you, hey, I can play 100 snaps right now. We run 104 sprints every day. Every day. Every day. 104. They're called speed racks.
I'm sweating just thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm playing for Coach Lambert.
Yeah, you just ran me off, Coach. I'm sorry.
Well, we break it down. We break it down into quarters. Each quarter has 26 racks. Well, in a high school football game, how many plays do you play in a quarter? About 25, right? Well, if I got a kid that's going both ways and he's used to running 25 plays full speed, and then he gets a break and he goes to the second quarter and he's got to run 25 again. Well, how is that different than a football game?
Right.
You condition their bodies, you condition their minds, you pay attention to the injuries, you pay attention to the ailments. But this is what we're doing right now. We're conditioning their body to play 104 snaps a game. So anybody on my football team that goes out there right now, you're never going to see us tired. We're never going to look like we're tired. And today, to be honest, we ran 115 sprints because we went into overtime.
Coach Lambert just ran both of us off, but that's okay because he didn't want us anyway,
And
right?
and thank goodness it didn't go to 2 or 3 overtimes, I guess, Coach.
It will before the summer's over.
Oh, mercy. Come on. You get me fired up in here, though, Coach. I'm ready to run through a brick wall for you.
Just not 115 sprints.
Just not 115 times that worth. I promise you that.
That's what they said until they did it.
Get your track shoes on, Coach Ron Lambert said, because his Overton Bobcats are going to be ready. Heather, it's never, there we go.
Scooting to the shot there.
Yeah. Sliding in.
Well done.
Kind of
yes.
like Chris
It's for Collinsworth. Yep.
Yeah, well done.
Never a surprise, regardless of the track, when Kyle Larson wins, right?
No, it's not. But also, you may be following Ryan McGee. I mean, who can follow Ryan McGee? That seems
Just
really
do the best you
unfair.
can. Just do the best you can.
I shall do my best. Yeah, never a shock. I mean, what's amazing is that he missed an entire race, like a full race, and he's back already being the points leader after 2 races. It's incredible. Anyone that wants to argue that he's not the most talented driver on the planet, I will gladly take the side of Kyle Larson in that argument because it's truly incredible.
If not him, who?
Well, the wine and cheese crowd wants to say Verstappen over in F1, but I don't think that Verstappen has the depth of the ability to drive different kinds of cars like Kyle Larson does. And getting in the Indy car, getting in his dirt cars, getting in NASCAR, driving in the ovals in the NASCAR, the super speedways, the short tracks, the road courses. I mean, he's a kid that can do it all.
Oh, she went like boxing style, pound for pound rankings, kind of across all genres there. I like what she did there, Heather.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I get why F1 people want to throw Verstappen in there, right? He absolutely dominates F1, but most talented driver to me means more than one style of racing, and that person in my mind is Kyle Larson.
Before we get any further, speaking of all types of driving, you were at some drag racing this past weekend, right?
I was. The NHRA was here in Bristol.
How did that go?
It's great. The NHRA is a lot of fun. If anyone ever has a chance to get over here to Bristol or get over to Memphis, St. Louis, where they also have drag races with the NHRA, I would highly recommend it. It's like motor racing for people with ADD, like short attention spans, because the races are
got
really
my
short.
attention.
Yeah, the races are right because it's a drag race. It's 7 seconds and then the race is over, and then they line it up and do it again. And it's loud, it's fast. We had the first driver ever to break 200 miles per hour on a bike here at Bristol. They've done it at other tracks, but the first one ever at Bristol, which is considered to be one of the tougher tracks because it's a little bit bumpy. The people that drive the bikes, particularly at Bristol, are insane. They're crazy.
Literally.
Yeah,
Because
insane.
I cannot imagine. I've never ridden a motorcycle to start with, but I cannot imagine wanting to ride a motorcycle 200 miles an hour.
What is so funny is that when he went on that pass, he being Mike Smith, who is the drag racer that did that, Erica Enders, who drives pro stock cars and is one of the best, if not the best at that discipline, was sitting in the media center waiting for her press conference because she had just won her challenge race for the weekend. And someone said, Erica, would you ever want to ride a bike? And she goes, no, I like seatbelts. And so, I mean, they're insane. They're just driving down there with nothing but a helmet to protect, their head from the concrete at 200 miles per hour. It's kind of crazy.
I had a desire at one time to ride a motorcycle. I grew out of it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping my son will at some point, but who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, Jeff, I was curious. I feel like we've asked you this before, but at what point does the season kind of reach, hey, we're just kind of in the grind, or we're kind of in the I don't want to say doldrums, but we're kind of just in that no man's land type situation, especially for guys at the AAA level that are battling every single night to put forth their best effort. Have you kind of reached that point, or does that point kind of ebb and flow as the year goes along in your mind?
I think in general, it's usually in August. I know we all love to say the dog days of August, and sometimes that feels more prevalent than others. I think for a AAA team, the reason I say August is not so much the heat and all that usually comes at that point, not that it's not warm now, but usually the tough time for a AAA club is right after the trade deadline, because everybody on a AAA team is curious how a trade deadline could play out. Am I going to get moved? Am I going to get called up because somebody else got moved? Am I moving down? Am I moving up? What is the trickle down effect of whatever my team and parent club do at the trade deadline? It's different every year. The Sounds have been directly affected by it each of the last few years with some guys getting moved. And so once the dust settles, and if you're a AAA guy that was optimistic to get some sort of an opportunity from a byproduct of the trade deadline and you don't, then you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not in the big leagues. I want to be in the big leagues, and we've got another 2 months of the season left. That's where mentally, I guarantee you, if you ask Rick Sweet that question, his mind is thinking about his clubhouse right after a trade deadline, because you get all parts of the melting pot at AAA, and that's where mentally you're like, all right, well, where's my light at the end of the tunnel to try to get to the big leagues? As much as they love Nashville, or they love being a Sound, or they love First Horizon Park, anybody at AAA wants to be in the big leagues, and that's usually where it comes. So I don't think it's that point right now. We're almost to the mathematical midway point. The first half will end after this coming homestand, and all-star breaks are coming. And I also think the regular Monday off day is a dramatic help in preventing guys feeling like they're in some kind of a grind. Because of the fact that, the quote unquote old days, the old AAA days where you had one off day a month, really easy to feel like you're in dog days in May or June. So that component helps too, because literally from a rest standpoint, there's always another off day now coming around the corner. And I do think mentally and physically, I mean, I know it just from a broadcaster standpoint, I'm not out there playing every day. It helps in multiple ways. So that becomes a factor too in avoiding some kind of a grind of where you're at in the calendar outside of, I think, early to mid-August. That dust settling on the trade deadline is always a unique period at AAA.
That's a really interesting concept, Jeff, and I'd never really thought about it like that. But when you lay it out the way you did, it makes a whole lot of sense when it settles in. Okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like going to jail, I don't guess, but okay, I'm here. This is my life for now,
Well,
and
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. That was it. This is where I am. And
I've said this before. Obviously, Major League Baseball is the best level, the highest level. But I've always felt like I could make an argument that AAA baseball is the most interesting level because of all the different dynamics that are at play. Rick Sweet has told me many times, once he gets the word from Milwaukee that they say, hey, go tell, player A he's going to the big leagues. And Rick calls him or brings him in, whatever. Once player A has been told, hey, you're going up, the AAA manager's mind then has to go to players B, C, and D who did not go up and make sure they understand why or why not, or, make sure they're still good to go. And, hey, I know you're disappointed, but we got a ball game tonight. Keep doing what you're doing. Whatever that hard conversation is, the best AAA managers, and the Sounds and Brewers have one of the best of all time, in my opinion, and the win total reflects it. The best ones can keep players B, C, and D in that situation on that right path, because invariably, like I said, they may love Nashville, the ballpark, whatever. There's a lot of wonderful things about getting to play at the second highest level of baseball that there is. But when you find out you're not going to that highest level and somebody else is, how are you going to react? And we can all, I think, guess how we would react. But until you're in that situation as a player, we can only surmise that it would be a pretty big letdown and a pretty big gut check moment to try to go play your ball game that night when you just found out you're not going to the big leagues, when that carrot is dangled and you are so close to the big leagues.
You know how you'd like to think you'd react.
Yeah. You'd like to think, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go 4 for 5 and show them that I can do this. But that's why I also love baseball, because trying harder is sometimes the worst thing you can do in baseball. If you're a linebacker, you can literally try harder to go make the tackle on the running back. In baseball, if you try harder, you strike out on 3 pitches because it's just not built that way for your response. That's where that's where this game challenges a guy, I think, in a different way than any other sport, perhaps.
University of Tennessee Daily Beacon, talking a little college baseball. Caleb, how's Omaha?
Well, it's about 90 degrees, feels like 100, and it's supposed to storm the next 2 days. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, it's not the 90 degrees that's the problem, though, really. It's the storming that's the issue. Now, if it's just the next couple of days, well, you could be affected if things get pushed back. But the fact of the matter is, Tennessee doesn't play for the next couple of days by virtue of yesterday's 6-1 win over North Carolina. They got today and tomorrow off. So are the guys going to the zoo or what? What are they doing here over this next couple of days that they're off?
Yeah, well, I know they'll have practice at least the next couple of days. I'm sure they'll do some stuff around Omaha. Specifically for Hunter Inslee, he said this win was big, so he can get some rest. And rest up that hip or leg or whatever he was dealing with yesterday. So he made sure to mention post game that it wasn't the only reason the win was important, but it was a pretty big reason. And truthfully, with the 2 days off, I mean, they're in the driver's seat now. If you were to win Wednesday, you're rolling into the championship series with your weekend rotation. So, I mean, the pitching staff is set up nice now. You're going to have basically the whole bullpen available on Wednesday when you face whoever survives between North Carolina and Florida State. So this team is sitting pretty right now.
And who would have expected to say that?
I think a lot of it comes back to this team has been here before. A lot of these guys. I mean, we talked to Dean Curley last night after the game, and he said that when he got to Omaha, everybody just told him what to expect. So whenever he got on the field, saw the bright lights, the big stadium, the Charles Schwab Field overlooking you as you're playing some of the best teams in the country, it was normal to him because he knew what to expect. So I think last year's trip, and Tony Vitello said it last night as well, last year's trip reigns even more important now that Tennessee has 2 wins and they're sitting in the driver's seat because all of this is normal to them, the weird routine. Now you've got 2 off days. That'll be new, but they know how to deal with off days in Omaha and how to deal with off days on road trips now.
Yeah, and Caleb, go back feels like a lifetime ago after what we saw yesterday, of course, but let's walk it back to Friday. Tennessee down, obviously, but it didn't feel like they were really, really ever out of it from about the midway mark of the game. Kind of walk us through what you were noticing and kind of the vibes from Omaha as Tennessee chips away, obviously, before that insane comeback in the bottom of the ninth to win it 12-11.
Yeah, I think with this offense, you can never really rule Tennessee out. I mean, 1 through 9, they have guys who can really get at bats. And I think that was epitomized by that 9th inning. I mean, with 2 outs, you got 3 or 4 hits there. Blake Burke survives that 2-strike check swing, and you still get 3 hits after that to walk it off. So I was with you. It felt like the deficit felt like it was almost like 10 runs, just the way the momentum was going. But Tennessee's offense, you can never rule them out of a game. So we were talking about it yesterday too with North Carolina for their pitcher. Whenever you get through the first 4, and then you still have Kavares Tears, who hit a home run against Florida State and had another home run tonight. I know, Middle Tennessee native, and there's not a hole in this lineup. You can't take an at-bat off, and that has to get to pitchers. You saw it with Jackson Arnold against Florida State. Jackson Arnold was not a guy who gave up runs, and he tied his season high for runs that he gave up against Tennessee, and that's just the offense it is. You can't take a pitch off. If you miss a pitch, you're going to get punished, and whenever you get runners on, not only do you have runners on, you're working out of the stretch. You can't take a pitch off. You feel like there's no room for error, and that stress on opposing teams wears pitchers down. We saw it against North Carolina, saw it against the very talented left-handed pitcher from Florida State. And I think that's why Tennessee is here now. Obviously, if you want to look back to previous teams, the 22 pitching staff and even the 21 pitching staff, and last year, all of those, I feel like mano a mano, all of those staffs were probably better than the current one. But what this current staff has is an offense that's going to back it up night in and night out. So, especially against Florida State, too, the offense was never out of it. And then finally in the 9th inning, it came around. I also think something that kind of flew under the radar there is Nate Snead calming the waters for Tennessee, especially after the A.J. Causey running into trouble, Chris Stamos not having a good start. Binky came in, ran into some trouble, too. Nate Snead came in, calmed everything down, threw strikes, still gave up a couple of runs, but it wasn't anything crazy like earlier. So, that Nate Snead outing set up the offense to be able to come back and win that game. And as long as the pitching staff keeps Tennessee in games, I don't think anybody will shut down the offense.
Yeah, it seems like the offense, if there was any question about whether they would, kind of maybe wilt a little bit, and I guess that speaks to your point about having been here before, we obviously knew that this offense was capable of producing, but we've also seen over the years kind of disappearing at times. And I think it was so refreshing, not only Friday night, but then we got a little dose of it again yesterday, putting up 6 runs in a pretty nice win versus the Tar Heels.
Yeah, and I think last night felt a lot more as a normal baseball game than Florida State's did. I mean, Christian Moore against Florida State had the cycle in the 6th inning, and it just kind of nobody was talking about it because they were losing the game. Well, you get to North Carolina, and a lot of us were talking about it. It felt more like a midweek game where it was like Tennessee took over the game in the 1st or 2nd inning, and there wasn't ever any doubt. And, North Carolina threatened a couple of times, but I think North Carolina's coach said at the post game. They tried to get Drew Beam in the stretch, and they just couldn't get runners on base to put stress on him. So he rolled 5 innings. You get the umpire delay, which was very strange, and that messes up. I think that's probably what messed up Beam's rhythm to end his day. And then you go 2 innings from Kirby, 2 innings from Nate Snead, and call it a night. So it felt like a very routine game. Vitello called it playing Tennessee's brand of baseball. There wasn't much question, and I felt like Tennessee could just do what they wanted to.
Caleb Giroux of the UT Daily Beacon joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Caleb, you spoke to it, pitching, because, you know, this offense is going to do what it does pretty much. I mean, they've scored 18 runs in 2 games out there. I don't know how that compares to anybody else, but I think it's probably the most of anybody through 2 games. But, you know, this pitching just has to hold people down just a little bit. I mean, they don't have to be lights out. They don't have to throw no hitters, just, you know, string outs together basically. And Beam did that for most of the game yesterday, for most of his appearance, and let the offense work. And to your point, this staff is in a really good place here through 2 games, because I would think to this point, pretty much everybody's available going into Wednesday.
Yeah, I think the only person that probably wouldn't be available is Beam. And then we were also talking about it a little bit last night in the press box. You probably don't want to use Causey either, assuming that if you win Wednesday, he'll be on a week's rest Friday. Obviously, if you lose Wednesday and you have to play Thursday, you're going to want to win Thursday. But Wednesday gives you a little bit of leeway to play with and use the pitching staff. You'll have Seacrest on over a week's rest, and he's been your normal Sunday guy. So I would assume they would roll him Wednesday unless they want to go a different route. But to your point, Mo, a lot of it is just the pitching staff throwing strikes, especially in the bigger ballpark with the way it's been playing. When you get a guy like Drew Beam who's going to throw strikes, I mean, 9 times out of 10, unless you're hanging a changeup down the middle, it's going to be a ground ball, or it's going to get caught in the outfield with Tennessee's fielding ability. So, I mean, you saw it last night with Christian Moore, Hunter Inslee going into the center field wall to save a double, maybe a triple there. So with this staff, as long as they throw strikes, they don't run into issues. When you run into problems is what we've seen a couple of times, and specifically that Saturday game against Evansville comes to mind. When you bring a guy in from the bullpen who instantly gives up a 4-pitch walk, that's the stuff you have to avoid, where it's like, what were you doing in the bullpen to come out and just instantly walk the first batter in 4 pitches? So as long as the pitchers are competitive, especially in Omaha with the way the park is playing, and a lot of teams, especially whoever Tennessee plays Wednesday, might be pressing in that elimination game, trying to do too much. You throw strikes, the offense will come around and they'll be able to play their brand of baseball. But it's a team that's been here before. You don't see a lot of guys getting worried about the lights. I mean, even last year, Drew Beam threw 5.2 innings against LSU, only gave up 2 runs and struck out 9, I believe, against the team that ended up going to win the national championship. Just Tennessee's offense didn't score. This year, he does virtually the same performance against North Carolina, and the offense backed him up and got him a win.
You know, you talk about walks. In these type situations, a walk is a rally. So especially a 4-pitch walk. I mean, teams thrive off that when they're trying to come back. In particular, teams thrive off that when they're trying to extend leads. So obviously you got to try to stay away from that. But you mentioned Christian Moore. The cycle on Friday, the first time in a men's college World Series since 1956. That defensive play that he made late yesterday, I guess it was in the 9th inning. But for everything that he's done this year, is he opening eyes still in Omaha?
I would think so. For me, you saw it yesterday from some of the media Friday, from some of the media who haven't covered Tennessee, or it seemed like not even maybe paid attention as much. Christian Moore goes for the cycle. You get the questions where it's like, when did you think Christian Moore was going to be good? What was recruiting him like? How has he grown this season? And if you follow Tennessee baseball, you know that Christian Moore, probably from game 1 this season to yesterday, has been their guy. And it showed. I mean, he hit it. We talk about the cycle. He hit a double in the 9th to get the rally going, keep the rally going to come back. So he ended up 5 for 6 with 2 doubles plus the cycle. And then I think the only time he didn't get a hit was he lined out to somewhere in the infield. So, I mean, I guess he's still opening eyes. At this point, it's more like, what can't he do? We saw him yesterday defending. I think probably when he gets to the next level, the glove will be the thing he needs to improve on the most. But man, he can swing it. He can make it happen. And what's most impressive about him in the top half of this lineup this season is there is no boom or bust. If they don't hit a home run, then you see Christian Moore hitting a single and getting on base to start things, or even hitting a double. Blake Burke, when he gets 2 strikes, he's no longer having these big, lengthy swings. He's even looking to go oppo sometimes as well and go against the shift. So I think Christian Moore has kind of embodied what's made this lineup so good this year is if we don't hit a home run, we're not just going to strike out or go back to the dugout. We're still going to put competitive at-bats, quality at-bats. And I think he embodies that at the leadoff spot. And Vitello said it yesterday when Hunter Inslee came out hurt, Christian Moore was asking if he had to go out there and play center field. So he'll do whatever for this team to win. And even when he hit the cycle, he said he didn't realize he had the cycle because he just wanted to beat Florida State. So he's a guy that really embodies everything Tennessee has done this year and is a big reason for the reason they're 2-0 now in the World Series and 1 win away from the championship.
And again, you know, you just can't say enough about this lineup with Cal Stark doing what he's doing in the number 9 spot, you know, with Dean Curley hitting behind Kavaris Tears and doing what he's doing on a timely basis. And, you know, KT with home runs in each of these first 2 games in Omaha out of the 6th spot. I mean, like you said, there's no place in this lineup where a pitcher can really catch his breath and say, okay, I'm all right here. You know, you as you size up a batting order, you're looking for places where you can go to get out. And against Tennessee, good luck.
Yeah, and I think the DH spot has been the biggest question mark in this lineup just because it's been a rotation. But Reese Chapman hit a home run yesterday in the DH spot. So it's like, where can you get an out? And the DH spot is probably your weakest spot. And he still hit a solo shot. I think it was like 401 feet yesterday out to right field. So you really can't. There's no breaks in this lineup. You talked about Cal Stark. He's a guy that has been overlooked this year. In the 9 hole, he gets on base. And if you ever watch him draw a walk or get hit, he will pimp that walk like it was a 400-foot home run every time because he knows how important that is with him standing on first base and Christian Moore at the plate. It's a brutal combination. We talked about it yesterday that North Carolina got lucky because a couple of times it was 8-9-1. So they got Christian Moore with 2 outs. And that's the best solution for Christian Moore is have him hit with 2 outs because then if he does damage, it's minimized the most it could be. But no, Cal Stark, you mentioned him there. He's a guy that's come through defensively, been a wall back there, always backing up first base every play, getting out of jams with back picks to first. And then at the plate, he doesn't care if he doesn't hit a home run. He wants to get on base and score runs for the offense. And he knows his role in that 9 hole is to not strike out and to get on base somehow. And he's done it great. And even in the rally against Florida State, he came up with a man on first and 1 out. A double play there would have ended the game. And yes, he didn't get on base, but he also stayed out of the middle and just popped up to the catcher. So wasn't what he wanted, but it also didn't end the game. So he's a guy that's really, really come through, and he's playing his role to the fullest of his ability. And a Knoxville native, ending his career in Omaha.
There's something to be said for knowing your role and then playing your role.
Yeah, you read my mind because I literally had jotted down special teams. You know, we've discussed obviously Stonehouse and his return, but I'm real curious to see how teams are approaching the new special teams rules because you get the vibe that certain teams are going to go really all in on this. And that may be the difference in a game or two for some of these teams, whereas some of these teams that are slow or not great at special teams, that could be a hindrance for them, it feels like.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a thing. I mean, look, the way they're talking about it now is they're calling it the first offensive play. Now, I'm going to be real with y'all. I have not, and that is something that is on my plate for this summer to actually watch because I just hadn't had time to watch the UFL, and I'm not going to act like I watch something that I don't watch, okay? But I have seen a couple of plays, and I have talked to some special teams people, and to be honest, everybody trying to figure out, everybody calling their boys in the other leagues because you know how football is still a very small world. You know what I'm saying? And so guys are calling guys to see what people are doing. It's going to be weird because do you put one of your best offensive players as a kick returner like it's like Madden 92? You know what I'm saying? Like you just have like Bo Jackson back there returning punts. You know what I'm saying? Just as an example, you know what I mean? If the kids even know who I'm talking about. But, you know, insert whatever great player you have him doing all that? Do you expand your roster? Do you change how your roster development? Maybe you don't keep a third quarterback now, like a Malik Willis, to keep another returner. Also, remember, that's where now you're going to talk about guys who, if you're not one of the top 3 receivers, Treylon Burks, you're not going to be on special teams because the head coach said so. Which, by the way, is a wild thing for Callahan to say out loud about a guy who was a first-round draft pick 2 years ago.
Two of them.
And Caleb Farley. Well, Farley, I think it's a little bit different because, man, that brother, oh my God, it's interesting. I actually, when I was working at Newsweek before I came here, I wrote about a story that happened with his family, obviously, with that thing. And then coming here and seeing the other pieces and then the injuries and everything, I mean, I could argue he probably would tell you, I'm lucky to even be on a football field, period, doing anything. You know what I'm saying? Treylon Burks, I think that situation is slightly different because it's so recent. You know what I'm saying? But it does kind of say some things, unfortunately, fair or not fair, about the previous regime. You got 2 first-round picks on special teams. However, on the flip side, if special teams is becoming more important and more emphasized and not a throwaway play, which is what the league would like, because let's be real, one thing about the NFL, they want to keep your butt in that seat, okay? They don't want you dancing off for bathroom breaks or, heaven forbid, changing that channel. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Hey, because if you think about it, like, let's be real. Like, if after a touchdown, if you know the kickoff ain't going to be nothing, right? If you know it's not going to be a real play, you know what I'm saying? You can change that channel for a second. Maybe that's, if you're at the game, maybe that's when you try to get your bathroom break. Or, you know, whatever, right? If they want you focused on that product the whole time and they want that play to mean something, then maybe you need athletic players on special teams. And it's not just a throwaway spot anymore.
What seems interesting about that situation, Tobias, is, you know, we saw articles about it, and Treylon seems to be completely bought in on special teams, which,
well,
I guess he's kind of got to be, but I mean, still.
Listen, they do pay him money to play football.
Right.
I mean, you know, hey, as people who do what we do, we have all been there where they might have brought you in to do one thing. And then you end up doing another thing. And it comes to the point where it's like, hey, man, do I still want to be doing this, or do I want to go do something else? And Treylon Burks still wants to do this. And maybe that inspires him more as a receiver, too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, maybe that, I don't know. But I'm saying is, I do think it's interesting when they bring in Tyler Boyd and Callahan at first says, oh, well, there's not going to be a reduced role. There's not, which, you know, here's the thing. Now that I say that, they did say he'll be doing all types of things. You know what I'm saying? So maybe he was setting us up the whole time.
Other duties as assigned.
Hey, I'm just saying that because remember now, the whole thing was when they was at first hyping them up, you know, saying this, saying that. You got a man, not really, D-Hop saying he reminds him of all these great receivers with this talent, and then all of a sudden now he's on special teams. So, I mean, I'm just saying sometimes both things could be true. And sometimes it could be, hey, we're trying to maybe drum up some more interest in this guy, maybe get him up a little bit. You know, if we were trying to, if you were trying to trade him, you kind of don't want to dump on him and lower his value, right?
Right.
I'm just saying, if that's the case, I'm not saying that's what they're, but I'm just, there's no reason to dump on the guy. Now, however, reality hits eventually, and that will ultimately be the test as to how much they value him and also how he performs.
Right. Wade and I will be here with you from 2 to 4, talking sports of local, regional, and national interest. So be sure and tune in. 2 o'clock, Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will see you right here in the Lee Company studios. We'll have a great Monday evening.